The principal of Dharmapala Vidyalaya in Ahaliyagoda, where administration deteriorated yesterday as a result of teachers taking sick leave as a mark of protest, devised an amusing solution to this problem today. The principal informed students of 2 classes which were under the purview of 2 teachers at the school who had been transferred effective from the 30th of August not to come to school today. The teachers at the school staged a sick note campaign yesterday as a mark of protest against the transfer of the aforementioned 2 teachers and a vice principal of the school. The 2 teachers and the vice principal were transferred on the basis of an incident that occurred at the school during an event held on the 8th of July. The incident in question was an entanglement of ropes while the chief guest of the event, Minister Pavitra Wanyarachi, was hoisting the national flag. If this is indeed considered a punishable offence, then the minister herself should also be included in an investigation of the fiasco surrounding the hoisting of the flag. A statement needs to be obtained from an individual only when the persons conducting the investigation are not witness to the incident. When they have witnessed what transpired, there is no problem with them initiating an investigation. Meanwhile, the police had to intervene today to direct grade 11 students at the Kavantisa Vidyalaya in Ampara to their classrooms. The students' action of skipping classes is not acceptable. However, the action taken by the Ampara Zonal Education Director, which led to the students' subsequent action, cannot be prevented from being called into question. The students demanded that their mathematics teacher, who was transferred effective yesterday with less than 3 months to go for their ordinary level examinations, be reassigned to this school immediately. The incident in question is that on the last day of the second term, the principal of the school is alleged to have arrived at a grade 11 classroom being supervised by the teacher who has now been transferred and is alleged to have assaulted students with a club. The teacher had testified to the truth of this incident and had voiced disappointment leading to this transfer. The police and the Zonal Education Director did not accept complaints that were lodged regarding this assault. In order to deal with the situation that has arisen, the Zonal Education Director informed parents who met with him today that the teacher who was transferred would come to the school from time to time to teach mathematics. Isn't the treatment being meted out to this teacher, who was an eyewitness to an incident that could be considered criminal and came forward to attest to the truth and express dismay, equivalent to the victimization of the teaching profession? Governor of the Eastern Province, this is over to you.
The Advisory Committee on the Ministry of Labour and Labour Relations convened in Parliament yesterday.
Issues raised by Parliamentarian Jayashree Ranga, the General Secretary of the Citizens Front, regarding the welfare of workers in estates that have been provided to the private sector were discussed once again at yesterday's meeting.
Let's take a look.
At the Advisory Committee meeting in Parliament on the 10th of July, MP Jayashree Ranga submitted that estate corporations are paying insufficient attention to infrastructure and the welfare of estate labourers. The chairman of the Advisory Committee, Minister Gamini Lokuge, accordingly instructed the Secretary to the Ministry of Labour to summon the Secretary to the Ministry of Plantation Industries to the Advisory Committee meeting. In keeping with the summons, an additional Secretary to the Ministry of Plantation Industries attended the meeting held yesterday. The estates have been leased by the Ministry of Plantation Industries. The conditions must be imposed by the Ministry of Plantations. If these agreements contain conditions such as the renovation of line housing, roads and the maintenance of school and hospital buildings, then you need to look into it as the Ministry of Plantation Industries and get it done. We have asked MP Ranga to present a list of estates where such maintenance is not taking place to the Minister of Plantation Industries and come to the next Advisory Committee meeting. Although good revenue has been earned for the government through these purchases of state land via the central bank, nothing is for the people in the estates. Today the secretaries to this ministry were called upon and Minister Gamini Lokuge informed them that MP Ranga has made such a complaint and therefore they must report to him on all programs they have initiated for the people in the estates who are plucking all the tea. On one hand, we shout in Parliament about the problems facing the people. In addition, immediate action has been taken with regard to something that I said in the committee in July. As a Nuwara district parliamentarian, I would like to thank Minister Gamini Lokuge.
The annual third festival of the historical Nallur Kovil in Jaffna took place today on a grand scale.
A large number of devotees, both foreign and local, were present for the festivities that commenced this morning.
The Ther chariot paraded the streets subsequent to religious observances that commenced at dawn today. The Ther festival of the Nallur Kovil in Jaffna will conclude tomorrow.
W.A.D. Nadawati Sirisena, mother of the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Minister Maithripala Sirisena, passed away last evening.
She was receiving treatment at a private hospital in Colombo at the time of her demise.
The remains of W.A.D. Nandawati Sirisena were brought to Polonnaru today for the public to pay their final respects. The remains are currently lying at Minister Maithripala Sirisena's residence in Navanagara, Polonnaruwa. W.A.D. Nandawati Sirisena, a retired teacher, was beloved by the people in the area as a dedicated social worker. She was a loving mother to 12 children. She was 83 years of age at the time of her passing. The final rites are to be performed on Friday at the Rajaratna Navodaya Stadium in Kanduruwela.
The third and final day of the South Asian Economic Summit concluded in Colombo today.
News First Katrina Chang has more details.
It was all about business, economy and growth.
That's the whole question.
Under the theme towards a stronger, dynamic and inclusive South Asia, the South Asia Economic Summit got underway in Colombo on Monday with the Federal Minister of Planning, Professor Ehsan Iqbal Chowdhury.
We are here today at the 6th South Asia Economic Summit held in Colombo, and 120 delegates from different nations are here to discuss and table issues concerning the economy in South Asia.
Minister of External Affairs Professor G.L. Piris delivered the valedictory speech at the event.
That there really needs to be measured, discriminating intervention by the state to ensure that economic development does not consist of theoretical abstractions which are remote from the lives of ordinary people, but on the contrary, they have a real impact in terms of improving the day-to-day lives of people living in all parts of the country. It is also important to ensure that government policy is in accordance with priorities as identified by the community. And I think the best way of doing this is to energize, to vitalize democratic institutions at the grassroots level, so that the representatives of the people, particularly at that level, are able to reflect in the policies they adopt the true aspirations of the people they represent.
With the 6th South Asia Economic Summit having come to a close and a number of issues addressed, will we see an economy that is more inclusive, stronger and dynamic in the South Asian region? With that note, I'm Katrina Chang for News First.
Nearly 1.5 years after the Maldives was affected by political instability following an alleged coup, voters once again are preparing to head back to the polls.
News First's Ramesh Irugal Bandara filed this report.
Eventful 2012, Maldivians are once again heading to the polls to elect a new president. 5 years ago, in 2008, Maldivians headed to the country's first democratic presidential election and elected Mohamed Nasheed as their president. 4 years down the line, Nasheed stepped down from the presidency and later announced that he was forced out through a coup. This year's presidential election features 4 candidates: incumbent President Mohamed Wahid of the GIF party, former President Mohamed Nasheed of the MDP, Abdul Yamin of the PPM, and Qasim Ibrahim of the JP.
Maldivians will head to the polls on Saturday to elect a new president. Now, according to analysts, during this year's presidential election, the two main candidates to watch out for are former President Mohamed Nasheed and incumbent President Dr. Mohamed Wahid. Now, ironically, these two candidates contested together during the 2008 presidential election in order to defeat Abdul Qayyum. News First, Sri Lanka's first global news brand, has made all preparations to bring you the details of the Maldivian presidential election. For the News First team, I'm Ramesh Irugal Bandara from Male, Maldives.
Afghanistan overpowered Sri Lanka 3-1 in today's encounter at the South Asian Football Federation Championships in Kathmandu, Nepal.
Mohammad Fazal opened the scoring for Sri Lanka in the 35th minute of the game. At the end of the first half, the teams were separated by a single goal. However, in the second half, the Afghan team overpowered Sri Lanka and broke through the defence to score thrice. Afghanistan won the game 3-1 and Sri Lanka lost hope of qualifying for the semi-finals of the championship. Afghanistan are currently ranked 139th in the world rankings. Sri Lanka are ranked 170th. Sri Lanka will play against Bhutan on Friday.
Well, there you go. That's a look at your primetime news bulletin for tonight. Thanks a lot for joining us. I'm Shane Silva.
And I'm Nicola De Souza. Have a good night.
First at 9.
Hotline 0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at newsfirst.lk.